Welcome to Kevin Richards VIPs. Inspiration comes in amazing ways. The most amazing woman I've ever met is driven, ambitious, has the best smile and the biggest heart. Let's get to know my amazing guest. Well, here we are sitting on a dock in Hawkstone with my most amazing person in my world, my mom. So I've wanted to do this interview for a while, and we've been talking about doing this. And it's funny because this is so out of my element for me because I can talk about you a little bit, but I usually get really emotional talking about you and Dad, and the kids. So this is nice that we get to sit here and do this. So, Mom, welcome to my show.
Nice to be on your show, Kevin.
And
nice
so,
to be here.
So tell me, why are we sitting in Hawkstone? Why Hawkstone?
Well, I think we're sitting at this beautiful lake, Lake Simcoe, at Hawkstone, because I have such wonderful memories of growing up in Hawkstone. I have wonderful memories of living in Barrie, but this is where it all started.
So what brought you to Hawkstone? You didn't just, get born and raised here. There's no hospital here. How did you wind up in Hawkstone?
My mom and dad decided to buy the big farmhouse that was on the property of the Pugsley estate, which went around the bay, and it was quite a big estate. But this house was beautiful, had 14 rooms, and
Wow.
They brought us up here, and we lived in the farmhouse and went to school in a one-room schoolhouse.
Now, there's another story behind all that, though, about how you wound up in the Pugsley family, too. So tell me about that.
Well, I ended up in the Pugsley family because I won the adoption lottery.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was adopted, and I was adopted right at birth. I went right to the Pugsley family. And my mom and dad, my mom in particular, did not want anyone to know that I was adopted. She wouldn't talk about it, and she wouldn't tell anyone. And I remember one time we went to the doctor, I said, "Come see my doctor, you'll like him." So she came, and he said, "I just asked your mother which one of the kids were adopted," and she said, "I can't remember." So, it all started here, and it all started because it takes a village to grow a child in Hawkstone.
Yeah.
Everybody cares about you. Everybody encourages you. You go to field day and win a red ribbon, they're as excited as you are. And it isn't just your parents, it's everyone. Although I had the best parents in the world, my dad was a sports guy, and we better learn to swim. We learned to swim and play in the water. And my mom was a great cook, and she'd bring all the food down, and we'd spend all day at the water.
Yeah. And so you weren't always lonely in this house either, too. So you had your brother and your sister, Marilyn. So Uncle John and Aunt Marilyn. But other than that, you also had foster kids that you were...
We had foster kids, and we had wonderful foster kids. And because I was probably about 13, 14 when some of them were with us, I think they felt like I was their mother, because I was the one who spent a lot of time with them. I loved kids. I loved being with the kids. And the worst part about that was you got so attached to them. They were like a brother and sister.
Yeah.
And you got so attached to them. The sad part was when, no matter the reason where they were going or why they were going somewhere, even if it was a good reason, it was very sad for us. Well, it was sad for me. I can only speak for me. It was sad for me. We had two brothers who came to us. They were very sickly, and then their mom got married again, moved out to Calgary, and they were taking them and flying them to Calgary because she got married again. Mm-hmm. And my mom watched the Calgary Stampede every year, hoping that she would see Ken and Wayne.
Oh.
Yeah, I never saw them, but it's sad. It's sad when you lose someone you love, even if you know it's for a good reason.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about that family, though. So you've got some really interesting history growing up out here now that you got, adopted into and became a family with. So you've got the Pugsley family out here. Tell me a bit about that.
The Pugsley family, this property on the other side of the dock here, right around the point, was the family farm, and they would come up here in the summertime, and they had 5 boys, and they would just do all the things that they need to do. They were a well-to-do family. They lived on Huron Street in Toronto when it was the street to live on.
Yeah.
My dad went to the University of Toronto. My mom came from a family where my grandpa Andrew McDougall was a world-famous photographer. And she was creative and artistic. And though I didn't inherit those traits as I know them from them, they taught us. all those things about how to be creative, how to talk to people, how to speak to people, how to be nice to people.
Yeah.
And my mom was the biggest giver back to the community that you ever saw. That's where I learned to give back.
Well, that's very obvious, especially nowadays, for sure.
Yeah.
So when you look back, people like Fred Haynes had a really amazing painting from this dock, and there was, Andy McDougall did some really amazing photography as well too, with Group of Seven stuff as well.
Yes,
right?
he did. Yeah, and Andrew McDougall, my grandfather, he would take pictures when the Group of Seven were up north painting.
Yeah.
And then they would use those paintings or those photos in the winter when they came back to Toronto, and they would paint from those.
Fascinating stuff.
You know, and it's a long, long story. But I was visiting a client and for my auction business, and to make the long story short, they showed me some photo albums that they had found in the attic of the house next door.
Mm-hmm.
And inside, I was flipping through, and I said, yeah, these are a lot like my grandpa's pictures. These are really good. And I turned the next page, and there was my mother. What would be the odds of that?
That's pretty amazing. And this was after how many years you saw this album?
The man said that he had been keeping it for 25 years, and they were getting ready to move. That's why they were having an auction.
Yeah.
He said, I wasn't taking them again. And his wife said, he said that someday someone who owns those will come here.
And you did.
And I did.
That's so
and I had
amazing.
asked my mom and dad for a big sign. Am I doing okay? Like, can you just give me a sign? Everybody's walking around. I have a lot of friends who see signs and see angels and hear angels and know what aura you are and everything. I said, Mom and Dad, just send me a sign that I'm doing okay. Well, my mom was go big or go home.
Yeah.
So she sent a big sign. That was a pretty big sign that they were thinking I was okay.
I think so too. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So there's a whole bunch of new family that you've discovered recently too, but I want to get to that again in a little bit. Tell me a bit more about you from your transition from Hawkstone into like your first couple of jobs, your first couple of careers, because you've had some really interesting jobs.
I have had some interesting jobs, and I've never had a job I didn't like, because if I didn't like it, I wouldn't have stayed there.
Yeah.
And I went to a one-room schoolhouse, and some well-known people in Barrie, Sharon Smith, she was Sharon Gray, and Barb Gray, Barb Sinton. We all lived below the tracks. We were the below the tracks people. And Barb Sinton says that every time I see her. And it was a transition to even go to high school from one-room house to a high school. I remember my brother saying to me, hey, you are not coming in, don't you dare throw a softball around on the front porch, because my dad had me doing every athletic thing there was to do. Mm-hmm. And so he said, you don't throw a ball around. And we went to school in Aurelia, and my first job was with Bell Canada. I was a telephone operator.
And the old operators, right? Where you're doing
you pull the plugs in and out and everything like that. And that was a great group of women. It was wonderful. And then I got married not long after that, and started having my family, and didn't know where they were all coming from. All these kids kept showing up every 2 years.
It's the water. It's like Simcoe
It's the
water. Yeah, you gotta move.
I found out it was green apples. I stopped eating them. Anyway.
So tell me about meeting Dad. Just give me that.
About meeting Dad?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was a blind date. Sharon Smith and I were in Toronto at my grandfather's, and she said she was going out with this guy, and she said he rooms with someone. Would you like to go out? And I thought, all right, I guess. So we went out, and we had a good time, and we saw To Kill a Mockingbird. That's Dad's favorite movie now.
Oh.
He loves that movie. He loves everything.
It's a great one.
Him. Sentimental he is. So anyway, we went out, and we had a good time, and I've never been known to keep my hair the same color for very long, right?
Okay, yeah.
So it was about a month before he came up to see me in his little Triumph TR3 sports car.
Baby blue.
It was awesome. So up he came, and by then my cousins were living with us too. So there was all these women or girls, and John got out of the car and he said, oh my God, I don't know which one is her. Because by then, when he went out with me, my hair was dark, and when he came up, I was blonde. So he was like, oh, what if I go to the wrong person? He said, I don't know which one's her. So anyway, from there, we just fell in love and moved to Toronto, and then we decided we didn't want to bring up a family in Toronto. Mm-hmm. So moved to Hawkstone, which was a long commute for John.
Yeah.
But he commuted for, 40, 50 years. And we moved to Barrie, and Barrie was just to be a stop before we went to Toronto. And we fell in love with Barrie. Mm-hmm. And to this day, I love Barrie.
Yeah.
I love Barrie. I love Hawkstone. I love Barrie. They're two different segments of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, there's sort of a funny thing, too, after the whole Dad situation and everything. You worked at the Barrie jail.
Oh, I sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, I did, and that was because I was doing a volunteer program there, right?
Yeah.
And every time I asked them what they wanted to do, they wanted to go on a cross-country run. Of course they did.
Yeah, sure they do.
Yeah,
Untie me.
We're not going to get that. But I was so often at the jail, they said, hey, look, we need a female here to work. Would you like to work here? And so I did, and it was my introduction to the other side of life. That there is another side of life that people live and they struggle. And, you know, I remember I was up, they used to put the females upstairs. And I remember this one girl come in with three of the most beautiful, well, she had three of the most beautiful little girls. And we're upstairs, and I said to the superintendent, can she have the three girls come and say goodbye to her? Because she was going away for a while. And he said, all right, I know I do these things for you. And so I had her come up. And he said, don't you dare open that door where she is. So I said, do you want to hug your kids? And I opened the door. She says, I don't want to hug them. I don't want to hug them. Like even her mother-in-law was just like shocked. And maybe it was her defense mechanism, but it was like, how could you not want to hug your kids?
Well,
yeah.
I guess you get that barrier right. You get that boundary
maybe
right.
A wall. Maybe she knew she was going away. But that was typical of some of the people that were there. They led an entirely different life than what I considered normal. But what's normal?
Well, I guess, you know, not to play Bell Canada operator, but you got to disconnect a few things here and there to be able to sort of desensitize yourself, knowing you're going away, or otherwise it's going to make you crazy. Yeah,
I guess that was it. You know, so I did that. I ran a program at the jail, and then I got a job at Canada Employment Centre, and I started doing workshops for women who were unemployed, and they would come in and we'd help them do the resume and do all those sorts of things. And then I had an opportunity at the college to go and be interviewed, because the college and the adult training center were very close. And I got a job teaching at Georgia. And in the meantime, I had also worked at a hospital in Toronto as volunteer administrator.
So you're not doing just one thing. You've never been good at doing just one thing.
So then I started, you know, working for the Canada Employment Centre, then went to Georgian College, and I had a wonderful life at Georgian College. I thought, even if I win $10 million, I'll never leave Georgian College.
Yeah.
We were very separate from the other part of the college.
You were in the automotive marketing program there too, when it first launched.
When I left.
Yeah.
And that was a whole different thing, because, excuse me, when I first went there, I had people who had employment problems. They had attitude problems. They had everything that made them so they couldn't keep a job. And then I went to work in the automotive program, and every student there thought they were doing the employers a big favor for working for them. You know, they were so different.
Well, there's been a funny transition in you know, into the millennials, and how all this you know, what people used to expect and what people used to work for, and now what people feel an entitlement to. And I think it's kind of turning around again, where people are starting to realize that they're going to have to work, right? Like that whole millennial transition.
I think it was more a product of their environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
there you
anyway,
go. Sure, blame that. Okay.
Yeah.
So now you go from there. Now, at what point do you decide, I'm going to become an auctioneer? Where does that happen?
Well, I was at the college.
Yeah.
Your dad and I decided that we wanted to do something together that was different than me playing ball and him umpiring and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, because you played a lot of slow pitch, and you played broom ball, and
we
you
played for provincial championships. Yeah, we were a good team, and much thinner then. Now I'd have to hit a home run to get to first base.
So this was something for you and Dad to do together.
Yes, it was, until it became all about me again. I was going to go be an auctioneer.
Yeah.
Dad thought that was wonderful. Your father was probably one of the best guys that I ever could have been with, because whatever I wanted to do, he just said, do it, you know. He was from a family where everybody stayed home. The women stayed home, and we're homemakers.
Well, he's a whole different family, one of 13 kids, and an East Coaster, and you're here.
But even his brothers and sisters, everyone, it was like, what is she doing?
Yeah.
Anyway, I just noticed all these people seniors who would say, I'll say, well, who's going to help you clean out the house? Who's going to do this? Who's going to, well, no one. I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to do. So we became the problem solvers. We would help people, because everyone I dealt with was going through change of some kind. But I felt particularly awful for the people who were all alone. And I said, this isn't right. And then I would say, make questions like, depending on the time of year, so what are you doing for Christmas? Nothing, I'll just be here by myself. What do you wish would happen? Well, I wish I could see somebody, or I'd be able to go out or do all kinds of things. And I thought, then I talked to a couple of my friends, Rose Lamb and Pat Fram, who's passed away now. But they encouraged me. They said, why don't you start a charity? Why don't you start a senior show? Why don't you start a charity? So I started almost at the same time, both things. And so the senior show was education for seniors and their families. And Senior Wish was designed to, first of all, make wishes come true for seniors. And the other part was to educate seniors and their families. And the other thing was to have intergenerational activities. So if we fast forward 8 years later, we have requests now from all over the province, people wanting chapters of Senior Wish. We've made some big wishes come true. We've made wishes like the lady who walked around the edge of the CN Tower, the Skywalk. She was turning 87. I thought, good for you. I'll go when I'm 99 because I'll know I won't lose much if I slip off. But I'm not going there now. And she was great. But it was just as important to play the bagpipes one more time for somebody who was in hospice. It depends on what kind of wish that they have. Now, presently, we have a wish for a man to visit Newfoundland, his sister in Newfoundland. Well, if you've ever been to Newfoundland, there's a great call to come home. It's like me coming back to Hawkstone. It's like that for them in Newfoundland. And so we also have now another lady who wants to go to Disney. And she's something like 67. She has cancer and she's starting to get dementia. And now's the time we have to send her so that she can remember going there and whatever before she gets too bad with any condition. So those are two we're working on right now. Christmas Wish is a big thing. We did 2,400 seniors who got gifts who would be alone. You know, there was a lady told me that she went and she was sad because her family wasn't coming to see her on Christmas Day. She was in a retirement or long-term care. So she went down to the windows, she's looking at the windows, it's snowing, she's crying, it's sad, there's nobody coming to see her. Everybody's coming in to see everybody else. And she said, then her worker came and got her. She said, come on, let's go back to your room, we'll see what's happening. Got back to her room and there was a big red bag in the bed. And she said, what's that? And they said, that's from Senior Wish. They sent you a gift because you're going to be all alone. She said, I started looking through that bag and I thought, boy, I'm glad they didn't come today. Seniors are so great with
it's
that,
wonderful.
You know? And we have a lot of things to do with Kempenfelt Bay School because those kids have been amazing. They raised money to help for the Skywalk. But they also help at Christmas time. They go out and they adopt 20 people. I go over to the school and I say to them, okay, I'm going to give you George. He was a farmer and he loves his farm. And what would you give him? And what would you give Mabel, who's 96 and likes bling and whatever, you know? So then they tell me what they're going to do. So for George the farmer, one of the kids said, I'm going to get him suspenders. Somebody said a plaid shirt. Somebody said work boots. But this little guy called Joey said, not me. I said, well, what are you going to do, Joey? He says, I am going to go out to that farm. I'm going to cut a piece out of that barn. You're going to take a picture of that barn. I'm going to put it in a frame and hang it in his room so he can look at it every single day.
So you can remember his barn.
Yeah, like I'll never forget Joey.
You have to be that little special kid, right, to be able to do something like that.
Yeah, that little special kid. And his mom sees me once in a while and tells me what Joey's doing. And we went down to collect the money for the Senior Wish for the Edgewalk. And there were two kids that were like the student leaders. They were running the day for the kids. There's Joey's brother comes up and he says, I'm Joey's brother. I said, I can hardly tell. Because he was just as smooth as Joey, just, you know, like
so
they grew
cool.
up in a family like that. And so we do a lot of other things too with Senior Wish, but I don't want to take up all our time talking about Senior Wish.
Sure. So let me jump into something else here that I really want to unpack a little bit too that I think is super cool. So you've won international recognition as an auctioneer. You were a world champion auctioneer, which is super cool. Twice, of course. You sneaked that in there twice. So, and then you've got Seniors Wish, which is helping seniors, feeling alive on Christmas Day and feeling loved, and, the wonderful how it's gone from, I think you had how many, 30 or 40 the first year, and you're up to how many now?
It's much more than Christmas Wish.
But how many more have you got now?
2,400.
2,400, and it's starting to franchise up.
The first year.
And, you got wonderful, beautiful people like, the Ferris team and that helping doing that sort of stuff around town. You get some great people. But back to you, as just you, this is really amazing. So not too long ago, you found your birth mom, and only in the last few weeks, you've discovered your birth father.
I did. I found my birth mother when I was 50 years old. And that was because both my mom and dad had passed away. I would never have looked for my birth mom.
Yeah.
Well, my mom and dad were alive.
Yeah.
And they are my mom and dad. They're so much my mom and dad. But I wanted to know where I came from and who I was. And there was like a chapter that was unknown in my book.
Sure.
And so I found Lillian and through Parent Finders. And I found her, and she wanted me to keep it a secret.
Yeah.
And I promised her I would keep it a secret. And she said, I want you to keep it a secret because nobody knows.
Which blows my mind, because you guys hung out.
Yeah.
And you were like a carbon copy of your mom.
I know, nobody knew, but I hang out with people who look like me too. So, but anyway, I promised her I wouldn't tell. And we had a good relationship for over 20 years. And then Lillian said, you can tell them when I pass away. Well, Lillian did pass away about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And we went to her celebration of life, and I said to her oldest daughter, can I talk to you for a minute when everything settles down?
And you were this close to not saying anything.
Well, you were on the ride down there with me all the way down.
I know.
I
I almost had to
should I tell them?
push
Should I
you to
not
do
tell
it.
them? And I said to Dad, if you get ready to start the car, if I say start the car, we're leaving.
Yeah.
And I thought, I don't know what the reaction's going to be, because she'd been afraid to tell them. So anyway, when things were settled down, Kathy says, would you want to talk? And I said, but not right here. So we went over to a corner. And I know you and Krista and John were all watching.
Yeah.
You and Krista eating Nanaimo bars like going out of style because you were stressed out.
Well, they were free.
So anyway, I said, I know you're grieving a mother this week, but I'm grieving a birth mother. And I could just see their heads going, and they went, you're our birth sister? And I said, yeah. And they were so happy, so happy. Then they took me downstairs, and Aunt Marg was there, who's 97, 98. She's just fabulous. And Noreen, who I'd known forever. So they said, Aunt Marg, come over here in the corner. So they said, Aunt Marg, you know what? Barb's our half-sister. Barb's our sister. And Marg says, I always wonder what happened to that little girl. And one of the things that made me sad was Lillian said, I couldn't look at you, I couldn't hold you because I couldn't have given you up. And so Marg said, I wasn't supposed to be there, but I went into the nursery and I picked you up and I hugged you and kissed you and hoped you would have a wonderful life. That was like, that just finished that whole thing for me. And then she said, don't tell me I can't keep a secret.
So on that day, though, it was one heck of a celebration, though, of people all wanting to meet people. And then last year, there was a family reunion.
Yeah.
And so in the last few weeks, though, Super Sleuth Kim, my sister, has done some pretty amazing sleuth work to find a birth father.
Well, I went to DNA, Ancestry DNA.
Yeah, tell me about
and
this.
You send your DNA in, and then it comes back and tells you, what did it tell us? All kinds of things that you thought you weren't Swedish or whatever. Anyway, it came back with all these nationalities.
Yeah, we're Scandinavian, aren't we, in some way?
In some way. And then it was a list of people who could be related or are related or whatever. So then Kim says, well, I'm going to send mine away because whatever different from yours will be Dad's side.
Yeah.
And whatever's similar with yours. So it showed up all these people, but it was way down the list. And she said, and on Mother's Day, she said it to me. She said, I'm going to find out who your dad is. And I said, you are? She said, I'm going to send those people all notices. I'm going to let them know who I am and that you're looking for your birth father. And so she did that. She sent messages to everybody. I said, if you do that, best Mother's Day gift I could ever get in the whole world.
Yeah.
2 days ago, I had a conversation with someone who knew our family, who was a stepsister to one of my birth sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately that birth sister had passed away, and they didn't know where the other one was. But they're going to find me pictures, and she wants to come up and meet me. And there is a nephew in Toronto who is the son of one of my birth dad's brothers.
So she'd be my cousin.
He'd be your cousin.
He'd be my cousin.
He'd be your cousin. And then it's just so amazing to be able to talk to somebody who could put it all in place. And and it's not, it is nothing to do with how much I love my mom and dad.
No, of course not.
It was finishing some chapters of my life. And you kids would ask questions. What was your birth dad like? I don't know.
Well,
I don't even know his name.
It's amazing how small the world really is, and how these people are still around, and everywhere from Texas to Toronto and all this craziness, right? Yeah. And how technology is now able to bring people together and fill in those unanswered questions, right?
Well, this lady I was talking to, her son lives just around the corner from you.
Really?
And has a son called Jackson.
Oh boy. Well, I didn't know that. See, now I'm finding out stuff. Now we got to talk after the show.
Oh, imagine we have to talk.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, I think I call you almost every day anyway.
One thing I didn't mention is that I have 4 children. And I have 4 children, 7 grandchildren.
Yeah.
And they are absolutely...
No matter what Dad says, I'm yours. I know. I saw the photo album.
Don't pay attention to him. I also told Kim she was Native Indian, and
yeah, I know.
Her DNA came back and said, "No, you're not."
I know. She told everybody she was Native, and I'm like, I don't know if that works, Kim, because we're not. We're not. Mom and Dad aren't.
But my family is my number one. I've done a lot of things,
yeah,
and I've been proud of all the things I've done. But my family and my husband and everybody involved with our family, our extended family, everyone. I am so happy, and I am so happy to have been chosen by the family that I was chosen by to be their daughter.
Sure.
So
if you were to take, like we could do this show in chapters and chapters and chapters and chapters, right? So Hawkstone and auctioneering and prison guard to Bell Canada to dad to children to family discovery. What is one message, if you could roll it into a big ball and give me one message to close the show, just give me this one message of what you believe is your message to leave for the world.
All right, there's probably 2 sentences. I think that if you feel you should be doing something and it's going to be positive for the other person, you need to do it because you're not going to come by this way again. You have to do it when you have the opportunity to do it. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is you have to be thankful to God for every single thing that he gives you, every good thing that he makes you, that he gives you.
Well, on that note, I'm thankful for you.
I'm
thankful for this family, and thank you for being on my show.
Thank you, Kevin.
Love
it's
you,
been
Mom.
a long time,
Thanks.
and I love you too, honey.